we're back with Mr. Chris Curran, of the founder and head instructor of the Podcast Engineering School.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Curran.
I read your bio and all that stuff and introduced you on the last show. I'm not going to do it again because I felt like halfway through I should have stopped for a commercial break. But let's just suffice to say he's done a lot of really cool stuff.
He's been busy.
He's almost been shot at by rappers that smoke weed out of mayonnaise jars.
He can't He can't deliver a milkshake to save his life.
That's right. Don't ever ask for a milkshake from him because you're just going to get milk.
Yep.
So, Mr. Chris, let's talk about podcasting. So you've done a show with us. So this is our second show. So now we have to ask the obvious question: how would you critique our show?
Hold on. I don't think we should get to that just yet.
Okay.
Because frankly, I don't want to hear any bad things right now. I'm just easing into this. What I really want to know though is how he made the jump into podcasts.
That's a fair question. So, yeah, you went from...
Because it was in its infancy when you did it, right?
Sort of. So, yeah. So, like we mentioned last time, I was in the music business for many years, and then I kind of got out of it. And then in late 2011, I found out that there's this thing called podcasting. Literally, maybe I had heard the term, but I didn't know what it was. And so podcasting started in 2004, believe it or not.
Oh, my God.
I didn't realize it was that old.
Yeah.
We're late to the party.
What?
Yeah. And just for context, Joe Rogan got started in 2009.
Holy smokes, man. I was just learning how to text in 2004.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. I think I still had a pager in 2004.
So I found out that there's this thing called podcasting and that, hey, wow, it's kind of like radio, but it's not live and you could just record audio and then you put it out through this feed and then people can subscribe and listen. And I was like, this is great. I love it. I want to do it. So actually in 2012, I opened a physical podcast studio in New Jersey. I had it for 3 years, and it was like a little, it wasn't much, but it was a little studio with actually this table. I don't know if you could see this round table that was in the studio. And I would have local people come in to be guests on my show, and some local people, after they were guests on my show, and they came in my studio and sat in front of the real microphone, and, ooh, this is cool. Ooh, I got headphones. I can hear myself. They wanted to start their own shows. So I started producing shows for those local people. And anyway, that's what I did for 3 years. But I jumped right in. As soon as I found out that there was this thing called podcasting and what it was, I was like, dude, I'm made for this. Like I'm like super overqualified for podcasting. But I love it. I just love it. Yeah.
Were you disappointed when you found out that in order to podcast, you didn't actually have to thread tape and align them and align the machines and all that?
Oh, God. That was fun, though. Those days were really fun.
Well, it's a completely different process. Well, we were talking about before we went live on the last show, we're technically shooting what we would normally call live to tape because we're not live, but we're recording it. But what's the right term? I mean, I've always called it live to tape, but what would we say now? Because we're not going to tape.
I think we say to tape. I mean, even Alex Bloomberg, who from Gimlet Media, who was bought by Spotify, he always called it to tape, and I think that's what people call it. They still call it to tape.
There you go. So it's the process of recording versus just a physical medium then.
Right. And, there's other uses of that phrase to tape. Like, for instance, there were some, like when I first got into podcasting, there was one particular individual who was teaching people how to podcast, and his way of teaching them was to do everything live, meaning play your intro music live and talk live and have a guest online live and then just record it onto a stereo track or even a mono track. And so you would call that live to tape, even though it's not being streamed live or anything, but yeah, it's being mixed to tape.
What? So when you began your adventure into podcasting, what was your first podcast show about? I mean, what did you discuss? What did you do?
Well, I first, just because I had to do something, I called it the Chris Curran Show, and I literally did it in my apartment with my wife sitting like 12 feet away. She was like doing something on her computer, and I just turned on a mic, and I'm like, hey, it was kind of silly, and I literally that's a show that I actually did start a podcast feed for that, but like I only recorded like 2 little episodes and then I stopped doing that. The first shows that I really started in earnest were the local shows. So I did a show called, I think we called it Business Beat Radio, and it was like for North Jersey businesses. And
Okay.
so we would bring in North Jersey business people, and I would sit there and talk to them. And then I did a few shows like that. I partnered with some local folks. This one woman, she had a business catering like senior care. Her company would go to seniors' houses and take care of them, stuff like that. So I'm like, hey, let's do a show. So we co-hosted a show called Senior Care Radio. And it was great. We did. I mean, we haven't done it. It stopped after a while, but I really enjoyed co-hosting with an expert in their field, and then where I'm just sort of like the host who doesn't know anything. So it's easy for me to play dummy. Like, well, what do you mean, senior? What does that mean when you go to someone's house? And how do you do that? And I could play the dummy, and then she could be the expert. But then we would also have guests who were experts as well.
Yeah.
So I did a bunch of that too. Worked out pretty good.
Yeah, we play dummies pretty well.
Yeah, but we're
So natural.
This show has
for
2
us.
dummies.
That's right. We're bringing double the dummy power to the show. So I guess so podcasting is, I guess, 2 things. One is the recording side, which is technical, and then the other side is format. It's like, what are you about, or what are you talking about? So do you think that there's a lot of podcasts out there where they've got a great, solid idea, solid show format, great guests, but they're lax on their recording skills?
Yeah, yes. The answer is yes. And it's because podcasting in general is an amateur, sort of like a hobbyist. It's not an industry. It's almost like a
movement.
A subculture.
A subculture.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
good. Yeah.
Movement. Yeah. So it's like most people who get into podcasting know literally nothing about audio. And so they do their best. And there are tools out there that can help them. There's a bunch of training. Some of it's good. Most of it is not that good. But yeah, so mostly people, they have the content. They know what they want to talk about. They know what they're an expert in or what they want to be an expert in. But then, yeah, it's the actual engineering part of it that's hard, or they don't do it that well. Now, in podcasting, there's this level that we call good enough. So as long as a new podcaster, even if they're not an audio engineer, fine, because no one really is. As long as the audio is good enough, meaning as long as it's not horrendous, that's okay.
That's a lot like government work.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like government work.
Oh, how true is that, man? Jeez.
Just need it to be close enough for rock and roll. They need to be able to understand what you're saying without struggling to hear what you're saying, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, so you want to present, as long as you're presenting something to the end listener that they can hear, that's not too distracting. Yeah, that's it. That's good enough. Now, and then there's levels above that. So some people who are in podcasting, they actually want to know, like, what is an EQ? Like, seriously, dude, what is it? Or a compressor? And why do I need that? And what are all these buttons on my DAW here? And so anyway, that's actually why I started my school, was to teach people all that stuff. And typically those people not only have a show themselves, but they want to actually help produce and edit podcasts for others and make money doing it. Mm-hmm. So that's why they need to know. They need to become a professional, basically. So,
well, how do they make money off of their podcast?
Yeah, we really want to know. How
Tell
do you
us
make
slowly.
money?
Let us write this. Let us write this down. No, but seriously,
breaking out pen and paper. Dude. Wow.
No, but seriously, how do people make money off their podcasts?
Okay, so in general, there are 2 ways to make money off your podcast, and mind you, this is separate from someone who wants to become a podcast editor and edit podcasts for others. I mean, that's clearly a way to make money. Like,
right.
Hey,
you're providing
I'll
your
edit your show.
Yeah, right.
$75 an episode. I'll edit your show, whatever, or produce it, whatever. But if you just have a show like you do, and like I have my podcast engineering show, there's basically 2 ways to monetize it. One is with sponsors, and the other is by promoting your own product or service.
Okay.
Let's start there. So that's what I do. I have the Podcast Engineering Show. I don't have any sponsors. Well, actually, I have one small sponsor, which is Focusrite, because that's a good company, and I know my buddy at Focusrite really well, right? So, and I use their stuff, so I'm happy with that. But in general, my show is to promote my school. So my show is what it is. I try to put out good content, and the win for me is when I grow my audience and then people sign up for my school.
Right.
And you could replace my school with anything. I mean, you guys could do, look, any product or service you can think of.
Right.
You could promote. And then if your podcast gets big enough and enough people know about it, some people are going to buy and all that.
Well, this is a good time to promote Rick and Gary's escort service.
That's right. We will pick you up wearing any outfit you want us to wear.
Oh,
and we are going to bring you the finest milkshakes.
Yeah.
So, all right, so you have, so how does somebody go about getting sponsors? I mean, I've dealt with sponsors for years and years myself, but for the lay person or the person that's just getting started, what tips would you give them on approaching somebody for sponsorship?
Yeah, so sponsorships is the other side, and that itself is split into two. One way to get sponsors is the way that big shows do. For instance, the big podcast shows on the big podcast networks like Gimlet and all the big shows who have like hundreds of thousands of downloads per episode. Those shows with that many downloads, they actually go with a CPM model, which means for every 1,000 downloads, the sponsor pays a certain amount of money. And I think the rates are somewhere between $25 and $50 per 1,000 downloads. So when you have a big show, you can do that and you can make money that way. Problem is, most everyone in the podcasting space is only getting, I think the average, like the 50% median average of downloads is like 160 per episode.
Wow.
Okay.
So 50% of podcasts in the world they get less than 160 downloads per episode. So here's what happens if you're getting that few downloads, you can't approach a sponsor.
Right.
You can't approach a big time sponsor. So for those shows and for everyone else except the big shows, the way to do it is just word of mouth and just talking to people. Like maybe there's someone in your town who one of your friends has a company. Then I'll give you $30 an episode to mention it, or $50, or let's do one ad a month for a year and I'll give you $600 or something. So it ends up just being whatever you can get with whoever you know and whoever you're comfortable with. Because like I mentioned with Focusrite, the only reason I took them on as a small sponsor is because I know them and like them. I get approached quite often for people who want to sponsor my show, and I don't want sponsors really. In fact, Focusrite had to chase me because I want my show to be without sponsors. Like, I don't want that, okay, let's take a break for the sponsors. Like, I don't want that in my show.
Right.
So it's a balance. Anyway, did I answer the question?
Not in the least.
Yeah, start all over. Your name is Chris, right? No. So do you think that it kind of, I don't know if cheapens is the right word, but I guess it cheapens the value of the content that's being delivered on the show if they're like, and by the way, we're brought to you by so-and-so. Do you think that the viewers are kind of like, hey, I feel like I'm being, pitched to and being advertised to?
So people have different feelings about this. I am a person who I understand why people have commercials, but it just, I don't know, like to me, a lot of it just sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, I know it's there for a purpose, and I don't, if the hosts of the show or the producers of the show want to make money through advertising, I get it. Like, I get all that, but I don't really listen to ads. I just fast forward them, and it's kind of annoying. Like, if you're in a good flow of a good episode and it just gets, chopped in half because you're like, oh, we got to go to the sponsors. Like, to me, it's just one of those things. I mean, even on YouTube, now it seems like on YouTube now every video ever in the entire world starts out with one or two commercials.
Right.
And it's like, really? Like, but I get it. But at the same time, it's like, really, man?
Here's what I don't understand about commercials, especially on YouTube, is that what do? The first thing you do, you click on a video and a commercial starts to play.
Skip.
You immediately look at the bottom right-hand corner and wait for the skip ad button to highlight so you can actually click through. You got to wait like the 5 seconds before you can go. So, and I mean, everybody does this. So that means that the company that is putting the commercial there, the marketing person that's deciding to place that commercial knows full well that as soon as somebody sees that ad, they're going to want to skip through. So how come people are finding value in putting commercials on YouTube when they know that people are just going to skip over the content? Are they looking for a couple of people that couldn't get to the button fast enough so that they could hook them in? Because, they got 5 seconds. There's a 5-second countdown to hook your audience. So immediately they start off with, if you don't listen to this ad in the next 5 seconds, you're going to die, or something like that. And they come up with these crazy hooks to try to keep people from hitting the skip button. But what's the right way to advertise on YouTube or promote your service or product or message? Maybe you've got a nonprofit that you want to promote. How do you get the message out there without people trying to skip through your ad?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I in a way, I feel for these marketing people because they got to try something. I mean, they're just marketing people. They're trying to figure out, how can I drive traffic and sell my thing? Okay, it's like me trying to figure out how to use my plugins to make something sound the best it can. Like, that's what I do. So marketing is what they do. So again, you can't begrudge them for doing it, but at the same time, it just like here's the thing. Marketers are not afraid to throw a bunch of crap against the wall and annoy the crap out of
Sure.
millions of people. They don't care about annoying the crap out of people.
No.
They literally don't care.
It's a wide net.
That's what they do.
Yeah, it's a wide net.
It's kind of like with telemarketers, they call you on the phone, the computer calls and stuff. You ask yourself, why are they calling? Because people aren't going to, listen to the message. They're going to hang up, but yet they continue to call.
Yeah,
or like spam, email that you get, junk mail rather.
Well, they do hundreds of thousands, and all you need is, a 1%.
So it's pretty
make
much
it count.
Yeah, I guess it is
That's
a net.
the thing.
Yeah.
But that's actually what I don't like about that marketing strategy is you're annoying the crap out of 99% of the population just to get the one. And so now if every company does that, that means all the marketing messages around us, none of us like it. And the only reason we're getting pummeled with it is so they can get their 1%. And again, I don't begrudge them for doing it, but
Right.
it's very inefficient but it is what it is. I don't have an answer.
I think I think the answer. I have an answer. No, I think the answer, and I've seen some podcasts do this. YouTube do this also. Is that you incorporate the sponsor into the show. So where the host is just mentions it. I've seen a lot of podcasters do that. When they're sitting there talking, and although this is annoying too, because especially when they're into a subject, and then they go. And that reminds me, let's talk about Ajax. It's like old,
Right,
back in the golden
right.
age of television, but it's part of the show. It's nothing that you can fast forward to because you don't know when they're going to end and pick up where they left off. So,
Well, I was watching last night. I don't know if you got a chance to see it yet, but there's the new show Lego Masters.
I don't watch television.
Well, I don't either, but we
kidding.
do the video on demand thing.
I
But
hate when people say that. I don't watch television.
well, it's
yeah,
actually,
you do.
I don't watch television like I used to. That's for sure. But I download or video on demand. I watch stuff or stream stuff when I want to watch it. But we watched Lego Masters, Sean and I last night. My son's like the Lego king, right?
Stars Batman, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's not going to pull out that voice every 5 seconds.
Absolutely.
But so they had it, and I thought this is a clever way. We're super entertained. It's basically like Cake. What is it? Cake Boss, like those reality shows. It's Cake Boss, but with Lego, and it's done super well. Very happy, super entertained. But the entire time they're doing it, they're promoting Lego. So it's
absolutely.
It's like hook us into something, give us some good content, and then tell us. By the way, today's episode is brought to you by Podcast Engineering School.
Yeah, well,
You owe me $10, by the way.
Well, in the golden age of television, you had the Maxwell House theater hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was just this program is brought to you by Maxwell House, and that's the last you heard of it until the end. Of course they got smart. Hey, if we do a commercial every 15 minutes, we can get more money from these sponsors. So, but and it was inevitable. it was inevitable for podcasts to go the way of television and broadcast radio and commercial radio, because that's what we do, especially in this country, is we find a way to monetize, and the only way you can monetize something like this is through sponsorships. It's the only way.
Yeah, well, and so there is. I always feel that there are more creative solutions out there in the ether, that people just need to get more creative.
Sure.
But there's a limit to that, right? I mean, we can't, it's not magic, right? You have to be creative and implement it in the real world and have it work. So I understand that new and creative ideas are not easy to come by, but there are, I think sorry, go ahead.
Well, you have some of them have gone to like subscription services, where you have to, you pay for a subscription to listen to the podcast. And a great example, Mike Tyson, he has Hot Boxing, which is a great podcast. It's fun, especially if you're a fight fan. But at one point, it was free, and then he went to a subscription service, and everybody lost their mind. And he lost a huge chunk of his audience. Well, guess what? It's free again.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
What is your take on subscriptions to podcasts?
So a lot of listeners don't like that, but there are models that are sort of the best of both worlds, where some people will have a free podcast, but they'll do like bonus episodes just for their Patreon or whatever members.
Yeah, their fan base, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So when did all right, I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around here, but because before, when podcasts started, it was purely audio. When did it make the leap to incorporating video?
Well, I appreciate you bringing this up, because everyone should know that a podcast, technically speaking, you can define what a podcast is technically, and what it is. It's any media that's delivered through an RSS feed.
Okay.
Which includes audio, PDFs.
Interesting.
You could have a podcast where your podcast is a PDF that you send out every week. That technically, that's a podcast.
Well, I guess the question: what does pod in podcast stand for? What does POD stand for?
Okay, so there's controversy around this, because
you own the podcast engineering school. You should have a good answer for this question.
So here's the thing. Everyone thinks it's because of the iPod. And that's what I thought for years. Because of Apple's iPod,
right,
it became a podcast, which is actually not true, because Evo Terra, who's an old school podcaster from 2004, he's the 40th podcaster ever he is? Anyway, literally 2004. He said it has nothing to do with the iPod. It was personal on demand, POD, personal on demand cast, so podcast.
Okay.
Oh,
that's
there you go.
Actually where the term came from.
So learn something new every day.
You could podcast, you could podcast a PDF, and that's a podcast. Did you just say that? You just said that.
Yeah,
that came out of your mouth.
We spent all this money on all this gear for nothing? Oh my God. I wish I'd have known that about 20 grand ago. Thanks a lot, Chris. You should have been our first guest.
So anyway, audio, PDFs, video, and I don't know what else you could put through an RSS feed, but that's it. It's just an RSS feed. The RSS feed technology, that is what makes it a podcast. That's why people who are like some people, they'll make like YouTube videos and they'll call it a podcast.
Right.
And it's like, well, if it does not have an RSS feed, it's technically not a podcast. And that's actually what's happening now, is people are calling everything a podcast.
Yes.
So it's sort of like, it's not bad. I mean, it's not technically correct, but things are changing. So whatever.
It's like when people call, anything that was shot on film a movie. Just because you put it on a film, it's not a movie.
It's true.
Right.
That is true. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
No, it doesn't.
So
but thanks, Chris.
What do you think what do you think makes for a great podcast? Like if you had like, I don't know how many, like if you had a bullet points of like, here's the top 3 things, is it like, it's got to be under this length or it has to be around this kind of format, or is it kind of like whatever works?
Well, it's nudity, free stuff, and I don't know.
That was in the 80s.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Wait.
Right.
What I would say, this is my answer to that question. It all comes down to the host's personality, their authenticity, and their audio charisma. Like basically, it comes down.
We need to get into something else.
Yo.
Wait, what? I didn't hear that.
We're screwed.
We're screwed.
Oh, geez, no. But yeah, like look. Long term, it's about the host and their authenticity and their message. Like if you listen to my show, it's me. I love audio. I don't have any ads. I yell and scream. I do whatever I want on my show. I just have fun with guests. I don't care. I don't try to be anything.
Sure.
And that authenticity is what people like. They just like that. Hey, there's this guy, Chris Curran in Colorado Springs. He's a crazy podcast engineer guy, and his show is very cool. That's it. To me, that's it. So, and that's one reason why Joe Rogan is so popular. Because look, he's an open book. He's charismatic. He's intelligent. Has on good. That's it. So,
that's kind of how we approached it. Because when we sat down to talk about doing this show, we were, well, what do we want it to be? What do we do? And finally, we just rested on, you know what? Let's just do it. Whatever it becomes. Let's just have fun. Let's not have an agenda. Let's just have fun, talk to people we find interesting, have some good laughs, and if it goes great and it becomes popular, fantastic. If it bombs, who cares? We had fun along the way.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of make it more about us just having a good time and having some good conversation, and some great coffee, by the way.
I'm still waiting on the great coffee.
Yeah, it's not really that great. Oh,
we're using the so you guys pod, you guys are doing it right. So is it the time of that we should go into me critiquing you guys?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, you said don't try, and we are super good at not trying at anything. So
yeah, but we want to hear the good and the bad, but keep the bad to yourself.
Yeah, start with which one of us is the better host. Just settle a bet that we're going to end up having later. I think Chris liked me better.
So, actually, I don't have much feedback. And it's all good actually. So first of all, the vibe you guys have is really good. Your mic technique is very good. Your chemistry working with each other is great. It's just very natural. Like I was just talking about being natural, that you guys are 100% doing that, that's it. People love that. So, and you're prepared. Really, I don't have anything bad to say. I mean, the way that I'm connected to you, and the fact, like the audio feed I'm hearing from you, that would literally be my only small, tiny complaint, which isn't really even that big of a deal, and it's okay. But besides that, everything is great. I mean, I'm so psyched for you guys to have more guests and, much bigger and important guests than me on your show. Because, dude, you guys got a really good thing going on.
Oh, now I'm self-conscious. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Gee whiz. I'm going to be second-guessing everything that I say on this show. Yeah, we do. I guess we do need to kind of figure out. Well, it's for the listeners and the viewers, our setup is pretty simple. Actually, it's not. It's pretty complicated. We have a control booth.
Nothing simple about this.
Mr. Brad, go ahead and wave. He's in the control booth. There he is. Mr. Brad's back there. So he's switching the show. So he's switching cameras, and we've got the audio in there. The mixers in there, and then from here over here, we've got you on a laptop. On Skype, and we put you there so that we could look at you and it seemed like you were in the room for us, and hopefully it looks like that for you. You feel like you're at the table with us. Yes. But right now, our audio to you is going through Skype. Now, it doesn't come across that way to the listener because we're getting the feed from the mixer, but you're only hearing what we're saying via the laptop. So I guess we should probably get a mic, a better mic for the laptop so that you could hear us more clearly.
That would work if you put just like a mic on the table and just ran it USB into the laptop. That would work.
There you go.
There.
I knew it was a good idea to have him on the show.
You said you have mixers. You have your audio going through a mixer. You
Correct.
could run a cable out of the mixer into that laptop, but that might be more.
Well, the only catch is we've literally tapped all of the outputs, all of the aux outs and everything, because we're feeding the streamer. We've got like a device that records for us the video, and then we're running this into Reaper to record as well, and then we've got a feed that's coming back to us. So it's like we kind of ran out.
And not only that, Chris, but we have absolutely no idea how any of this works.
Nope. That's why we've got the guy in the booth. We're here to drink coffee and ask questions.
Do you guys ever plan on, because a lot of, I think Nick DiPaolo has a show where his producer is there, but like not on camera, and he just like ribs his producer. Are you guys going to just pound your guy in the booth over here?
No, Brad's a very angry young man.
Yeah,
and he abuses us physically.
If we make fun of him, he just cuts to black, and then and you can't even hear us.
And
so
then
we have to.
He beats us, and we need help. Call somebody, please help.
You can't really tell through the glass, but he's strong.
He is.
Can we see? Can you actually show yourself? Let's see.
He's like a monkey, like a strong
There's Mr.
monkey.
Brad. There he is, purple hair and all. Woo, such a rock star.
You guys ever mess with him? Like just move your mouth and not make.
Oh, yeah. We do that.
Yeah, you just move your mouth like your mic's not working.
Yeah, when we were doing we were trying to fix some sync issues, we had Rick over here going, "Okay, ready?
That's
1, 2, 3."
I did that a couple of times. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just that's why it took so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your podcasting, the podcast engineering school. So who is a candidate for wanting to take your courses, and how long are the courses? Is it weeks on end, or is it like one class, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. So there's 7 classes, which are kind of like lectures. They're 2 hours each. And then there's a lot of bonus videos. And most importantly, there's one-on-one mentoring with me. So each student I meet with one-on-one. So my school, it's not like just a course you buy and like, okay, here's the videos, have fun, have a nice life. It's literally a mentorship with me, because that's the most effective way for people to learn. And so and then we also have a private group, a Slack group, which people are in for years to come. So like they attend the school, but then me and the rest of the alumni are there to help answer questions. It's a closed community. It's really great.
Oh, that's cool.
Mainly it's for people who. I started the school for people who want to learn how to produce podcasts at a very high professional level so they can go out and get clients and make really good money. Mm-hmm. Because that's actually what I do. I have a company called Fractal Recording. I produce podcasts for a handful of companies, but it's, maybe the average editor charges anywhere from $50 an episode, maybe to $125 per episode. And I charge at least 4 or 5 times that much. So I'm going after different clientele.
Right.
Cause like, I want to make a living out of this, and I want to provide that service to these big companies. And anyway, they have the money to pay, and if they want my service, that's what it is. So there's a lot of money to be made out there. But the thing is, you got to be a professional. You got to know how to handle audio. You got to know how to run sessions, and you got to be a pro. I mean, you can't charge you can't have high fees and then still be an idiot or something. Right? So That's why I started the school, to teach people to be able to do that. But surprisingly, more than half the students are just regular podcasters who they just want to know how to do work with audio, man. Like they're just like, I don't get this, man. I want to learn. And they have their mics, they want to upgrade the mic, but they don't know anything. So those students have loved my school, because we literally start from, like I said, ground zero, fundamentals. What is sound, amplitude, wavelength? I mean, and then we just build all the way up, and then we get really crazy and intricate. And so far it's been great. I've been doing it for about 3 years. We've had about 75 students come through the school, 80, 75, 80, something like that. And it's just been great, man. A lot of fun.
So now, do you get into the business side of it as well as the producing side? Like, hey, this is how you should, prep for an interview and do your research. And, if you're approaching a company, because if you've got some pretty high end companies, Forbes, you're dealing with them. So it's not only a matter of, hey, this is the button to press and this is the level to set it at, but it's also like, here's how you approach a client, and here's how you send an email, and here's how you come across professional in your questions and calls to action and submitting invoices and all that kind of stuff. Do you get into any of that?
Yes, pretty much all of that to a certain level. We get into all of that because, like you said, that's really important. One thing I do is the agreement, the contract that I use for my company, I give it to my students, so it's like a template for them to use to choose from and use if they want. And yeah, how to deal with companies, how to like a lot of people on the first call with a client, you're on a call with a potential client. It's a first call, and they're gonna ask you how much it costs, right?
Sure.
But the thing is, you don't know enough by then to give out prices. So you can't give prices too early. You can never do that with anything that's custom. All podcast production is basically custom work because we don't know what they want. I mean, there's a million different ways and different things we can do or not do. So first I need to know from the client, like, what do you want to do here? Do you want to just record your own audio, send it to me? Or do you want me to actually run a virtual recording session online and me engineer the session live? Now, how much of the ums do you want me to take out? Or how finely do you want me to edit this thing? And are we going to record 2 hours and chop it down to 20 minutes? Because, by the way, if you ever want to frustrate the living crap out of yourself, try that.
No. That's why we have Brad.
Exactly.
Anyway, so you got it. Yes. So the answer is yes. And you got it. There's a way to deal with these big clients. And I definitely help my students with that. And I even tell my students, like, if you're going to have or graduates, if let's say next week you have a call with a big company, I tell them, look, let's me and you get on the phone for 10 minutes. I'll talk about it real quick with you. And so make sure you're going, I'll make sure you're going into that meeting prepared with a plan, and boom, that's it. So students love that, man.
Oh yeah, I bet. That's great.
What would you say is the biggest mistake that most beginning podcasters make? Something that's something that's common. That's like, hey, you know what? You really kind of want to watch out for this because this is the most common thing that podcasters do when they first start out.
Yeah, I'd say there's a few. There's a handful of fundamental mistakes. One is the equipment choice, like the mic choice. Some people, they just like use their earbuds or, and again, you can get decent audio with almost anything if you do it right. But so the mic choice. A big thing, believe it or not, is mic technique. Even if you have a good microphone, like if people are watching you two and me, like I'm staying right here this whole time.
Sure.
I'm right here. I know where I am. I'm right here. Now
right.
When I laugh, I lean back. So, and you guys have really good mic technique. That's one of the biggest things, believe it or not.
I've been around a few microphones in my day.
I just like to get really intimate with it.
Yes, you have the radio voice. That's because your voice is so much deeper than mine.
I'm trying to get on a Pillow Talk radio.
I think you kind of put me to sleep sometimes. So do you have a favorite type of mic that you like to use or that you recommend?
So okay, yeah. So okay, you have dynamic mics and you have condenser mics. Those are the two main categories, although there are other categories like ribbon mics. I want to try a ribbon mic really soon.
But is anybody really going to use a ribbon mic for podcasting?
No, probably not, but I want to try it.
You're going to be the one guy.
Why not?
Okay.
I don't know.
You can do anything you want.
That's right.
Roger Cloud, he makes these ribbon mics. Anyway, but yeah, dynamic or condenser. Condenser mics are much more sensitive. They pick up a lot more room noise. And therefore, me and pretty much everyone else in the industry who knows what they're talking about always recommends to go with the dynamic mic because
should we be writing this down?
We should. Actually, we'll watch the show later, but we really won't.
Wait.
We really won't watch it.
I was going to ask you, what mics do you have there?
These are actually the broadcasters from Rode microphones.
Yeah, Rode Broadcaster. So okay, that mic is an exception because it is a condenser. But it's meant for broadcasting.
It's designed
and it has
for that,
a cardioid pattern. That's an exception right there, actually.
Yeah. And you've got is that the EV20? I can't tell.
Yeah, it's an RE20.
RE20. Yeah, by EV, right?
Yeah, by Electro Voice. And this foam windscreen that's on it is actually the foam windscreen.
It's the WS2 from Rode microphones, right?
It's from Rode because I have a broadcaster just like you're using.
There you go. Yeah,
So
and those have a pop. Those have 2 pop filters, if I remember right, inside the body, right before the capsule. I think there's 2 pop filters layered on top of the RE20.
Yeah, the RE20. There's pop filters inside. In my experience, there are many microphones that have like foam pop filters built into the mic, but in my experience, it's never enough. You always need another one because it's just not enough in the mic. It helps, but you do need an external windscreen for most mics, especially the closer you get and the more you face it. Yeah.
So are you running a compressor before that ends up in your recording, or how are you doing that in post?
Okay. Yeah, so for my audio, yes, I run my audio into a channel strip, which is I bought a really, because again, I'm an engineer, so I'm like, I'm going to buy a really sick and disgusting channel strip, and I'm going to use it for the rest of my life. So I bought the Neve Portico 2.
Look at you.
Which is a nice channel strip, has a really good mic preamp. Yeah. It has EQ, compression. It has the silk mode, which I don't really use. But anyway, it's a good, it's a really good channel strip. So my mic goes into the channel strip. And yes, I am using a little bit of processing in my channel strip. Not too much, though, because I don't want to overdo it. Because overdoing compression to tape is... it's almost impossible to reverse that.
Right.
I mean, it's just not really possible. So you got to be careful. So I'm careful. And then then my channel strip runs into my interface, which is a Sound Devices Mix Pre 6.
Okay.
Which is a really great unit. And then that's what goes into the computer.
And also, the Sound Devices, those are super quiet units.
Yeah, you would know. I mean, they're mostly meant for on-location recording, right?
Yeah, I think the company got started that way. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what they do specifically is location sound gear, right? Or do they have stuff that's studio-based now?
No, I think you're right. And by the way, the Mix Pre Series 2 just came out, and they're making a big deal out of this 32-bit recording. So as a person who records on location for sound, sound clips and sound effects, does the recording in 32-bit, does that mean anything to you, or were you doing that already?
I'll be honest with you, 24-bit was the highest I recorded at. I haven't recorded at 32-bit yet. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. They're saying that the dynamic range is like literally approaching infinity.
I can imagine. Yeah.
They're saying with 32-bit, you can actually record even if your audio is peaking at like -40. If you record it with 32-bit, you can easily just boost it up 40 dB in post, and you lose zero quality.
What?
I mean,
that's insane.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's what they say. I haven't tried it, but
yeah, I think technology is reaching the point where there's no excuse for having bad audio. If you have bad audio, it's because you're just not paying attention or setting your levels the right way, because it's getting so inexpensive, and the quality is just is improving year after year. Whereas back in the day, 20, 25 years ago when we were getting started, it was, you really had to play with the gear because some of the stuff was noisy right out of the gate. And if you didn't set the levels right, you were getting a ton of system noise.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. Wow. By the way, I didn't say this yet, but hey, Mom, I'm on Wild
Traxx. That's okay. I gave a shout out to my mom, I think, on the first show.
Who do you have a favorite podcast?
Oh boy. Do I have a favorite podcast? Well, I listen to Pod News, which is a news podcast by James Cridlin. Shout out to him.
Are you checking your Facebook right now while you're on?
No, I'm checking my Podcast Addict, which is the app I use. What app do you guys use?
A Podcast Addict, of course.
Okay.
No, we're not using one yet. So would you recommend that then? Podcast Addict?
Oh, Podcast Addict is okay. If you're on a iOS, like if you're on an iPhone or something, there's an app called Overcast, which is supposed to be clearly the best one, but it's iOS only.
Okay.
Other than that, there's other apps too. It doesn't matter. It's just whatever app you like listening. It just It's just an app where you can subscribe to all your shows, so then you can just look at them all and see all the episodes, and it just makes it easier. That's all.
Okay.
I like Darknet Diaries. I like Broken Record with Malcolm Gladwell and Rick. Oh my God.
Fears?
Rick Rubin. Hello.
I was going to say, I have another show? I'm not aware of that. So what is Darknet Diaries about?
Oh, that's an awesome show. It's all about hackers and how they hacked into stuff and hacking between countries and hacking. It's all about like hacking. But the way it's done is so cool. It's a great show.
Wow.
And it's just, anyway, I don't want to gush too much, but it's a good show.
There you go.
I noticed that he did not say WoW Traxx, though. I you know.
Oh,
it's because we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We haven't.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
We're going to have to talk to you about getting us out on some RSS feeds, because right now the show's living on soundeffects.com. And we're thinking about putting it on YouTube, but we just didn't know the best way, I guess, to distribute the show. But we'll chat with you a little bit later. Maybe we should take some of your classes. To be honest with you, I know that I would benefit from some of your classes as well.
Well, so here's the thing. I mean, I'm willing to help you. My school doesn't teach what you need to know to get your show out in RSS feed. I mean, I kind of go over that, but it's actually not that hard. So I'm happy to help you guys do it. I mean, you just need a media host, and then you choose a media host where when you upload your MP3 to the media host, they will send it to all the different, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Pandora, and that's it. So you take whatever audio you're generating right now, you just save it as an MP3, upload it to your media host, which Libsyn is one of the biggest ones, and Blueberry is also good. And there are others. And then that's it. Then you set up your account there and put in your artwork. And then when you upload an MP3 and you hit publish, it sends it out to all the directories. And that's it. That's your podcast.
So now, do any of those services allow for video, or is it only audio?
Oh, yeah, they allow for video. The thing is, most of them charge by the megabyte, sort of. They have plans where they allow you so many megabytes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're doing video, it might get costly real quick.
Okay.
So that's why video, what people are calling video podcasts now, they're just like on YouTube and the other video platforms. You don't need to put it through the RSS feed, really.
Yeah, my son, I mean, that's all he does is listen to podcasts. I mean, he always has a bud in his ear, and I see him. Hey, what are you listening? Oh, just a podcast. I mean, ever since he was in high school, he was like that. Just he'd listen to podcasts all day. I mean, and podcasts that cover a wide range of subjects. So he loves the audio format of that because he can just go anywhere. He doesn't have to watch something. He can just listen to it and do what he needs to do.
That's it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, when I'm at the gym, I never just listen to music at the gym. I used to back in the day, but now to me, I was like, I'm there to train my body and my mind. So I'll usually put on something that's going to, self-help or whatever, something to kind of get my mind going as well. But I prefer video myself, specifically because I like to turn on the subtitles. That way I can follow along as well. It just kind of helps me retain what I'm learning. But yeah, if I'm at the gym, I'm also listening and watching some type of show. Yeah.
Nice.
So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I was going to say podcast. You mentioned screen time, Gary, and that's one of the coolest things about podcasting is that you can listen to it and you don't need to look at the screen. So that opens up all these different places where you can listen, because there are many places where you cannot watch video when you're driving a car. Mm-hmm. You can't watch video.
Well, you can, but it's just really not a great idea.
It's frowned upon.
It's frowned upon by the police officers.
Like when you're jogging, okay?
Jogging?
Video.
Who do you think you're talking
right,
to?
Hold on, slow down now. We're not professional athletes or anything here.
All right, when you're in your kitchen preparing a meal and cooking, and I mean, again, technically you could have some video running, but having a podcast just playing is great.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. I love it. The only podcast that I actually watch is Joe Rogan's. All the other podcasts I listen to.
Me too. I do listen to his audio too sometimes, but I do watch him a lot as well. Yep.
Yeah, he's got a great show. I like his show as well. Man. So Podfest, you're going to be there in a couple of weeks. Do you attend any other podcasting expos or conventions?
The other one I attend is Podcast Movement, which is actually the biggest podcasting conference in the U.S. right now. So that one happens in August in Dallas, I believe, 2020. And yeah, those are the two. There are a lot of other little podfests and like podcasting conferences, small stuff going on all over the place. So if anybody listening or watching wants to, if you want to just attend either an event or even a meetup, a lot of people have local meetups for podcasting and podcasters. It's a great way to locally tap into people, because there's nothing better than going to an event. Like if you really want to learn about podcasting and how to get started or something, go to an event. You could have a 20-minute conversation with somebody in a hallway, and you could learn, it would have taken you 3 years to learn that on your own, right?
Yeah. So is Podcast Movement, you said, is in Dallas, Texas. Is it in Dallas every year, or does it change around?
No, they move it every year. And actually, they just started doing another one 6 months off, which is called Evolutions. They just did that one in California. But yeah, it does move. Podfest in Orlando is kind of that never moves. That's always in Orlando because it's run by Chris Kremitzos and John Dennis, who live in Florida, and that's like their home base. So that's always where that one is. Who knows if they'll do anything different in the future. But that one's growing too. Yeah. They're all growing.
I've been there. I think this is going to be my third or fourth year, I think, going to Podfest. I enjoyed it. It's really close to Full Sail. So I usually go down there, hit Podfest, and then jump up to Full Sail and usually hang out with the kids or, some of the Hall of Famers there. In fact, I'm going to be doing I'll be hanging out with you guys that weekend, and then Sunday I have a presentation in the morning at Podfest, and then the afternoon I'm jetting up to the Winter Park area to get ready for Hall of Fame 11 up at Full Sail.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's going to be great.
You brought up a good point there, Chris, and that's about local meetups. And I think those are great because you get to talk about, how to do things and that kind of stuff, but also it opens up the opportunity for cross-promoting, because everybody's trying to get an audience. And I think one of the easiest ways is with cross-promoting.
True. Yeah, and then there are many ways to do that. Sometimes cross-promotion can be a little difficult. Like if someone local to me asked me, like, hey, can you mention my show on your podcast and I'll mention your show? Like, if it's about like audio production, like if their show is similar to mine, then I might consider it. But if it's different, then I wouldn't do that. One of the ways to grow your podcast or your audience in general is to be guests on other podcasts. This has been well known for years. And there are companies, believe it or not, that you can pay. They will book you on 4 other shows every month. And just, it's not cheap, but the point is, like, if you're a guest on other shows, think about it. The people who listen to those other shows, they have a phone, they have an app, they know how to subscribe to podcasts. So if you're on a show and you mention, hey, subscribe to Wild Traxx, all they got to do is search Wild Traxx, subscribe, done. Now they can listen. Now it's literally that easy for them. So that works out well.
Every podcast that I listen to happened just that way. Every single one. I was listening to a show. They had a guest on there who had a show, and I really enjoyed the guest. And I said, I'll listen to their podcast. And boom, subscribe, done. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Of course he's right. He runs the podcast engineering school.
Exactly. He's the guy to go to if you want to learn about podcasts. Well, I know that we're coming up at the top of the hour, and I know that you're a very busy guy as it is. So we want to thank you for coming on the show. We got to have you back on again if you'd be willing to come back on the show. We had a blast. Go ahead.
Of course, dude. This has been my most fun experience, I think, guesting on any show ever. This has just been great. Thank you both so much. You guys, you're doing such a great job. at such a high level. I really appreciate being here. So thank you guys so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. And I look forward to hanging out with you at Podfest and
Yes.
picking your brain a little bit more and having some good, some good laughs like we did last time. So
Totally.
that's it for the show today. Until next time, make some noise.
Is that it?
I think so.
Where's my
Don't
check?
ask for your check. God, you're not getting paid. We don't have the podcast engineering school sponsorships.